Alright, welcome back to part 2. So today we are going to be making ears, arms, legs, and then the rose, his bandana, her bandana, or if you want it, male or female, I don't know. So I was going to start with ears. Yeah, let's start with ears. The ear is very small and quick. Just looks like this. I've already made one each of what I need for the video, but so that's one of your ears. So we're not stuffing it so that we can push it in and make it turn like that. So let's get that done and out of the way. So you still need your 5mm H. You're going to make a magic ring. I'm holding mine funny. And you're going to put 6 single crochets inside. You are going to need a stitch marker. I put mine away. I put everything away yesterday. Alrighty. So, 2 single crochets in each stitch around for the next round. Go right into the stitch. We're not slip stitching. We're not chaining one. This is called amigurumi style, in case you didn't know. If you're going to use the stitch marker, it goes in after the first stitch, not the second one. I'm just going to count to 12. That's my 12. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So that's my 1 single crochet, and then my increase of 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And repeat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that'll give you 18 stitches, and that's about as far as we're going. So then once you're done, you can put 1 single crochet in each of those 18 stitches for 3 rows, and then fasten off. So I'm done my 3 rounds, so I'm just going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to slip stitch and I'm going to fasten off. To fasten off with enough to sew, you're going to have to sew this to the top of his head. So as far as this guy goes, you can just pull him tight. Excuse me, make a knot. Don't make that a tight knot because it's just going to pull through if that's what you do, and leave a nubby when you cut it off. So here we have it. There's your ear. So you can go into the next stitch, pull this guy through to the other side, and pull up. It kind of evens it off a little bit. With amigurumi, you're constantly working in the spiral, so you kind of got to do things like that. So then we're going to fold it in half, preferably with this on the side, just like that, and you're going to whip stitch the bottom. So that's what a whip stitch will look like. Because you only need to grab the a whip stitch is often confused with going under all 4 pieces, but a whip stitch is actually back loop to back loop. It's only 2 pieces that you go under. It doesn't really matter, but sewing an ear on, you kind of want to keep these stitches visible, and I just find that there is a little bit of a difference when you go through all 4 as opposed to an actual whip stitch. So a whip stitch is perfectly fine. Here we go. So go ahead and make your other ear, and I will put my screen up with the pattern on it so you don't have to rewind, and I will meet you back here. So I've got one of my ears sewn on. I gotta sew my other ear on, and it's very difficult to sew ears on camera. I'm gonna do my best, but as you can see, it's gonna be very close. I'm not gonna be able to do this on camera. However, I'm gonna try to show you. I go through the head and then directly through the ear all the way along, and then when I get to the back, I do my invisible stitches at the back, if that helps. But if I try to do this on camera, mine are not going to be even, but make sure that you pin yours. So I will meet you back here. I hope that was helpful. Probably not, but taking sewing lessons from me is probably not a good idea. If there was a way that I could do this and show you, but there just isn't. There just isn't a way to do this. So, and this table is very slippery, so he just wants to keep falling down. So, sew your other ear on. Sew your ears on, and I'll meet you back here. Here, I got my ear sewn on. It was actually very difficult to do the second ear and try to get it exactly even, which I don't think I completely did for the positioning, but ears are difficult. Let's move on to some easy stuff. Arms and legs. So we're going to start with arms. We're going to start with white because I wanted to put little middies on this guy. Valentine's Day is in February, so it's still kind of chilly in February, so I wanted to put little middies on this guy. So I've got this sparkly metallic white. It's hard to see, but it's sparkly. So that's what I use for the headband and for the white heart and mittens. So we're going to start the arm, but we're going to put mittens on, and then we're going to put claws on. You don't have to put the claws on. I just chose to put claws on because it's a bear. So we start with a magic ring. Now if you're struggling to do a magic ring, you can just chain 2 and then put everything that you would put in the ring into the first stitch. It's just a fake magic ring. It's easier for some people. So put 6 single crochets. Now that's what you get when you do a magic ring and 6 single crochets. Now a fake magic ring, make a slip knot, however you make a slip knot. You're going to chain 2, and in this first stitch you're going to put 6 single crochets. It's funny how this is awkward for me, but a magic ring isn't. So that's my 6 single crochets, and you're going to pull it just like you do, and you get the exact same thing, a magic ring with 6 single crochets. So there are the 2 ways to do it. I almost pulled that out, but I don't really need to. So your next round is going to be 2 single crochets in each of these 6 stitches, so that'll bring you to 12. I can get in there. Get into my first stitch. This first stitch always seems to be a pain in the butt, so if it is a pain in the butt for you, get your needle and just manipulate it a little bit. So 2 single crochets in each stitch. I'm not going to use a marker, I'm just going to go around just like before. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So you've got a straggler at the back you can use as, you know, if you lose your spot, You can use this straggler as your beginning. There we go. So I'm going to pull on my little straggler and close my hole up nice and tight. But that's how I know I'm back at the beginning without a marker. I should probably turn my light down because since this is white. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So I'm going to use my marker here. 1 single crochet. And then your increase. 2 single crochets in the next stitch and repeat 1 2 1 2 1 2 all the way around for a total of 18. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and a decrease, and then after this round we're going to switch to brown, and I'll show you a different way of switching your yarn where it's kind of seamless. Just 1 single crochet and then your decrease. You're going to use these 2 stitches, go into the first stitch, yarn over and pull through, go into your second stitch, yarn over and pull through. Got 3 loops on, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That's the decrease. So 1 single crochet decrease. This brings you down to 12 stitches. So last decrease. Now we have to switch to brown. Before we do the last stitch, let's take care of this business because this is irritating me. I hate when this gets in the way. So I always like to just tie a knot and cut it off. Leave it unnubby so it doesn't undo itself because it's not a tight knot. If that was a tight knot, it would probably just slip right through. It wouldn't hold anything. So we're going to go to do our last stitch, but we're also going to change color at the same time to make it seamless. So you need to have your brown ready. So go in to do your decrease, grab your 2 loops, 1 in each stitch. But when you pull through all 3, to complete the stitch, complete it with your new color. So pull through all 3. That completes the stitch and changes your color seamlessly at the same time. You'll see what I mean. So pull down on everything so everything's nice and tight. That's the only part that's tricky. So your next round is going to be with the brown, and it's going to be 1 single crochet in each stitch. So I'm just going to pull everything nice and tight, and I'm going to try to weave it in for a bit. So I'm going to put my first stitch in, and I'm just going to do 12. It's 1 single crochet in each stitch, so I'm going to do 12 stitches, weaving in probably half, so 6 stitches. You could probably let go of your extra yarn. I'm not even counting. 4. So that's 6. You can now cut off the white. And this excess yarn, this tail, you can make that nice and short. You don't need to cut it right off, and then those just get tucked down inside the hand. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet decrease. This brings you down to 8 stitches. So that's 1 single crochet. So when you're switching colors, now you learn this with tapestry crochet, which I'll be doing some videos about. But when you switch colors, always just try to finish your stitch with the new color as opposed to finishing the stitch and then starting your new color, because half of your stitch will be the old color. 1 single crochet decrease, that's my one with my marker, and then your decrease all the way around. So this will bring you down to 8 stitches, like I said. And then after that, you're going to do 10 rows of just 1 single crochet in each of those 8 stitches. It goes pretty fast because there's only 8. So I will see you on the other side. So I've got my arm done and I've got it stuffed about as full as I'd like to have it. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to fasten off. So you need a tail, obviously, for sewing to the body, and sewing the top shut. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to pull this through. And I'm going to pull up on it. So you just need to sew this top shut just like this, and then we'll put some claws on it, and then we'll, if you're doing that with me, it's optional, you don't need to. So we're just going to do another whip stitch, so back loop to back loop. So that's all you really need. So for claws, let me turn my light up again. I turned it down for the white. I'm going back to white, but I'm still going to turn it up. That makes a whole lot of sense. So you need a piece of white. Turn it down a bit. So you need a piece of white. These claws are fairly easy. I don't know how you make claws, and I wasn't going to watch 15 videos on how you make claws 15 different ways, so I decided to just figure it out myself. So they're not huge, they're not really that noticeable, but they are pretty easy peasy if you ask me. So take your hand, make sure this is running this way. So you want to do, so if this is sewn this in this direction, your claws are going to be here. If it's sewn in this direction, your claws will be here. So just make sure this is sitting correctly. So this is where we sewed it shut. It needs to be running this way, and we're going to put our claws right along the top here. So you can space it as any way you like. My spacing is done 2 different ways on each of mine, are not concentric. So I don't have really anywhere to tell you to go, but you can go in anywhere you want. It's where you pop out that matters. So pop out somewhere where you want to start your claw. So your claw is just going to be, so I'm going to go back in, but I'm going to, so this is where I came up. I'm going to go in through this stitch, I'm going to come out. So I'm picking up 2 posts. You don't have to do it this way. So I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to go through the loop. So I'm just basically making a knot. And I'm going to make 3 or 4. It all depends on what you want. Now you can go in it either way. Now, it doesn't matter. The knot's made, so it doesn't matter. Oh, sorry. It doesn't matter how many knots you make. It all depends on how big you want your claws. So when you're pulling, pull back and forth. Don't just pull in one direction. So the paw I did last night for the video, I did 4, but I only did 4 on the main parts, and then these 2 I just did 3. So I'm just going to do 3, and that creates this little nubby. And that's all my claws are. So then I went back down through this hole, and I popped out in another spot. So it all depends on your own spacing. It doesn't have to be like my spacing, because I'm just guessing. So then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just make knots over the course of 2 posts or 1 post or whatever you want to do. It's completely up to you. Dealer's choice. So now that I'm on the top, I'm going to do 4 knots so that it makes his claw a little bit bigger. And you want to do 4 or 5 of these anyway. I mean, again, that's up to you how many you want to do. So I'm going to go back down the same hole and I'm going to pop out somewhere else. Just trying to keep them spaced good enough. And I'm going to do the same thing. So that's how you make claws. You can choose to do it or not do it, whatever your little heart desires. It is your bear, so you can keep doing this, or you can go and follow my screen and make your other arm, and I will meet you on the other side. So these little knots that you made, they get pushed down into the hand, nubby and all. And there's your little paw claws. So they are super cute. I think so anyway. So when you sew it to the doll, I sewed mine low. I left this gap because I'm putting this bandana on. So if I didn't leave the gap, then the arms would have gotten lost. So make sure if you're doing the bandana to leave a gap. If you're not doing the bandana, then you could probably sew it up at the neck. Like most arms get sewn up at the neck. So I sewed mine fairly loose so that I can move it. So when I put the rows on, now this is not going to come off. It's not like anyone's going to pull it off. But I didn't pull it really tight. So I can still manipulate this arm. So when I do the rows, I can still bring the arm up. But I did sew it on an angle. So you have to do the same thing with this side. Just try to get them matched up. These pins I use are wig pins. They seem to hold things pretty well. So I'm going to do invisible stitches, which means I'm going to go down as close as I can to my arm, into the doll, grab some doll, and then come up through the stitch. And then pull up. So having a hook like this, like I said in my last video, is recommended. And again, I'm going to go down into the doll and come up into the next stitch. So I'm going stitch for stitch. Go down into the doll again. So these stitches are getting yanked. When you pull up, they're going sucked in underneath the arm, so you won't be able to see the stitches. But I mean, the arm is still like this much thick, so you're still going to see where it was sewn on. And then you can just go down into the doll and you can pop out wherever you're going to pop out. Take my pins out. And then you can just weave. So I'm going to go in as close as I can to the tail. And I'm just going to weave. So when I pull it, it just looks like a stitch. It doesn't look like I got something there that shouldn't be there. So I'm just going to weave a couple of times, and then I like to tie a knot in case anyone decides to tug at this arm. Now I do have little grandbabies, but they probably won't be playing with this. This is a Valentine's bear, so this is a bear that you give to your loved one. You know, your grandma, or you know, if your husband likes bears, stuffed animals. So there's my arms. We're not going to sew on the bottoms, because when you sew the bottom of an arm, all of a sudden their arm wants to stick up like that. So these arms are secured enough that I can still move them when I put the rose in and sew his arms together like that. And then he's good. He won't be moving his arms around after that. So on to the legs. The legs have heart feet. Now I did this one last night trying to keep the shape of the heart, and I ended up getting a piece of brown when I did my chain 2 stuck in there, so I'm not happy about that. So we're going to try not to do that again. So you need to start with your red. Let's get my white out of the way. You need to start with red for the legs. And I'm still doing this with a 5mm. Trying to just kind of get everything straightened out here. I got a mess. So, make a magic ring or chain 2. Whichever method you prefer. I'm going to make a magic ring. So inside this magic ring, I'm going to try to do this as slowly as possible. So I'm going to put 3 double crochets. And now I'm going to put 3 half double crochets. And now I'm going to put 1 triple. So yarn over twice, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's why it's called a triple, because you pull through 3 times. That's going to be our bottom point to our heart. So now we repeat the same thing the other way. So now we're going to do 3 half doubles. So we're going back up. Now we're going to do 3 doubles. So now I want you to pull this closed a wee bit. So this beginning here has chains, but this just kind of stops. So we're going to have to chain 2 in order to make that hump. So now I want you to slip stitch going right into the center of the heart and making a slip stitch. Then you're going to have to pull everything tight. So you're going to have to pull that right back to the other side, to the back side of the heart. And then pull your middle closed. Now you're behind everything. So I want you to chain 2. And that's your heart. We're going to do hearts differently for the other things. They're not going to be quite the same. I need you to work in the back loops only for this next round. And we chain 2, in case you're wondering why I just chained 2. We chain 2 just to get the height. That's the only reason I chain 2, because I slip stitched into the center, so I chain 2 just to get the height. So 1 single crochet in each stitch, back loops only. Should have 15 stitches. Sorry, that's my computer going off in the background. My laptop. So that's my 15 stitches. So this is what it's supposed to do. So it's supposed to kind of curve down like that, keeping the shape of the heart. But it doesn't tend to. Once I add the brown, it seems to. So, normally I would slip stitch back in here, but that's where I got into trouble with the brown, because I was going to switch to brown. So I want you to chain 1 because I need this hump. And maybe just stick it somewhere on the bottom of this chain on this side. And now that just looks off center a little bit, but can't really get away with too much. Doing a heart-shaped foot is not easy. So I'm going to change to my brown for my leg. Oh my good lord, my computer is making all kinds of noises. I am so sorry. I don't know what it's doing. I think it's doing updates. So with the brown, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to pull this red right down because I don't really want to see much of it. So I'm going to tie everything at the back so it's not all just sitting there doing nothing. So for this brown, you're going to go into the full stitch, not just the back, if I can get into it. Here you're just going to do 1 stitch. 1 single crochet in each stitch. Don't worry about weaving in any of the ends, we're just going to tie them all at the back. It's just easier. So 1 single crochet in each stitch around. Alrighty. So I don't want to continue to chain 2. I just want to now just do the leg in amigurumi style. So before we continue, let's get rid of our red. And we can just start tying stuff together. So I'm going to tie the brown and the red together first. Just 1 knot. It doesn't have to be any more than that. I don't think anything's going to happen to it. And then I'm going to just double knot the red and then tie that together again, just 1 knot. So now that I've got everything tied, I'm just going to snip it off, leaving some nubbies like I always do. So the only definition you now have is because we did back loops only, you now have this raised front loop, and that's the only definition you have of the I guess I should have tightened that up before I did that. Anyway, I'm not super happy about how the legs came out, but it isn't horrible either. So so this next round is going to start off with single crocheting 2 together. So we're not slip stitching anymore, we're not chaining 2, but you're going to go into this next stitch, you're going to pull through. So it's just a decrease. And you're going to go into the next one, pull through, and you're going to do a decrease. And then you're going to do 3 single crochets. Now I'm just shaping the foot. 3 single crochets, do another decrease. So you might see it written as SC, sorry, SC, not DC, SC 2 talk. So that just means single crochet 2 together. So now you're going to do 4 single crochets. You're going to single crochet these 2 together. And you should have 2 single crochets left. And you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of those. And now we're back around to the top. You should have 12 stitches at this point, which is about the size of the leg that I wanted. So now for the next 12 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 12 stitches. So I would use a stitch marker just to count your initial first row, make sure you have 12. And then after that, you can just count and use your row marker or row counter if you have one. That's all I do. I don't actually use my stitch marker. I just count 12, hit the button, 12, hit the button, 12, hit the button. So you're going to do that for 12 rows. You're going to do 12 stitches for 12 rows. And then I will see you on the other side. So I have my leg done. I'm just going to finish stuffing it. See all my ends? I take all my scrap pieces of yarn and I use that as part of my stuffing. Instead of throwing them out, you might as well use them, right? And they make pretty good stuffing, especially when you're doing like just an end of a hand or something. You can use that as stuffing. It's just an idea if you wanted to save on your stuffing. So I don't want to overstuff my leg. But I do want it to be the same size. I want to get it different sizes. So I'm going to go into my next stitch. I'm going to fasten off. And I'm going to leave a sewing tail. Go into your next stitch and pull this through. And then pull this up. Just like before. So, if this is... Try not to put too much in the end of the foot, because I wanted to keep that heart shape, but anyway, you're going to want your lead to be on a side where you can sew it like this and still keep the heart at the front, so you want to squish it like that. So this can't be sitting where it's sitting, it has to be off to the side. So what I do, you can use a needle or a hook, it doesn't matter. I just like to pull it through the stitches until I come over to where I need it to be. This should only be about 3 or 4 stitches. You can, like I said, use a needle too. So you just need to make sure, because that's how your foot's going to be with the heart shape. So you're going to squish it closed like that. Oh, I need to go for one more, I think. So you need this guy on the side. So once you got him on the side there, I don't know how the ends get so messed up. So once you got it on the side, just double check it again. And you're going to do the exact same thing you've been doing with everything else. With the ear, with the arm, you're just going to whip stitch. And like I said, you can go through all 4 pieces or just the 2 that you're supposed to go through with a whip stitch. It's completely up to you. Now you're ready to sew it. So, it's up to you where you sew it. So I want my doll to be turned a little bit because it's going to be holding the heart, or the rose. So I kind of want a bit of an angle, like it looks like my guy's kind of sitting sideways. So I'm going to probably sew it on right about here. So that way it looks like he's sitting sideways, holding the rose out. I did my last one, I did right side, so I'm going to do this one left side. So just make sure your legs are even. And then you're going to do the invisible stitches, or however way you want to sew yours on. I'm going to do invisible stitches like I've been doing the whole time. So instead of pulling up, this time I'm kind of pulling down and away. And once you come to the end, you can just go into the doll and pop out wherever you pop out. Pull that down nice and snug. We're not sewing the top of the legs. So that now you just want to weave and then make your knot just secure. If you pull too tight, just go in with your hook and pull, or your needle, or scissors, or whatever. So I'm just going to continue to weave. in 3 different directions. So hard to show you on camera. I make such big dolls. I don't make these tiny little finger dolls that you can hold like this. I make big ones that you can snuggle. And sometimes when you don't have a wide enough angle lens, it's hard to get it all in there. So tie your knot, get off your piece and poke his bum. Or wherever you're... I was on his bum. So, the one thing I did not put on this bear is a tail, because bears don't really have tails, although I've seen teddy bears with tails. But bears don't have tails, so don't expect a tail, but if you want a tail. So, my guy now sits up on his own, just like that. And then he's kind of off to the side, turned a little bit, so the rose stem or anything's not going to be getting in the way. So we can do the heart first. Let's do the heart first. My hook. So I just sticking with my 5, made a magic ring. So this heart's a little bit different than the heart we made for the foot. This is one of my favorite hearts. I designed it. Myself, because I didn't like any hearts that I really seen online, and you may not like it, but this is the heart that I chose to make. If you know how to make a heart, you can make your own. Inside this magic ring, I'm going to put 3 double crochets, so it's really similar to the foot, but different. Three double crochets and 3 half double crochets, I'm trying to go slow so we can just keep the momentum going. You don't have to pause it just to do your stitches. So now we're going to do a triple crochet, so yarn over twice, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now this is where it changes from our last heart. We're going to do a chain 3 picot. So we're going to chain 3. We're going to come down and grab these 2 pieces of yarn, and we're going to slip stitch into them. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to grab those 2 pieces of yarn, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to slip stitch. So now that gives me a point down here. So just make sure you pull that tight. So now we're going to do 3 half doubles, and 3 doubles. Now we can pull our work. So this point gives you a really nice swooping motion for your heart. Sorry, my camera is really does not want to record today. Anyway, this gives you a nice sweeping point as opposed to just a regular old point. So that's how I like to do it differently. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into the very center ring. Same as before. So everything is the same except for that chain 3 picot. So now pull everything tight. So when you fasten off, you need to fasten off with just a little bit of a tail. It doesn't have to be extravagant or ginormous. So make sure you push that knot right back down. Pull your middle tight again. And then before we sew this anywhere or tack it or tie it, actually I just tied it. I don't think I even sewed it. I'm going to tie a knot just to keep that center tight, because it will kind of try to pop open. So that is our heart for our headband. And we're going to do the same heart for the bandana with this point on it. So we'll set that aside. So the headband is a slip knot, not a magic ring. Ha ha ha. 5mm H. I did it with the white. So again, I'll turn my light down a titch. So chain 4. This gives us 3 working chains, because you can't work the 4th one is on your hook. So you have 3 chains there you can work. We're going to work 1 single crochet in each of these 3 chains. So that's our foundation. That's our starter. So chain 1 and turn. For the next 40 rows, now you're going to have to measure your bear's head, because I don't know how much you stuffed it. My rows may not be 40. When I built my other bear, it was 40 rows. You're going to do, now it's only 3 stitches, so it's no big deal, but you're going to go into the back loop only on this one too. And you're going to do a single crochet, back loop only. Oh, I'm stuck. Sometimes this stuff is a real pain in the butt. So don't forget this little guy. He likes to turn over and be weird for some reason. So, oh, he's really being weird today. So back loops only, chain 1, turn. So it's only 3. It's gonna go so super quick. Anyway, you're gonna do 3 back loop only for 40 rows. And then you can slip stitch the 2 ends together. I will come back for that. You don't have to try to figure out what I'm talking about if you're a beginner. If you don't want to do back loops only and make the ribbed look, you don't have to. But I'll show you. This is the look you're going to get if you do what I'm asking you to do, but you don't have to. You can make this any way you want. You'll just have to keep measuring the head. Well, you have to measure the head anyway. You have to just keep wrapping this around the head to see if it's long enough, because like I said, I don't know how you stuffed it. I can just kind of give you a number. It's going to be 40 rows. So it goes pretty quick. It's 3 stitches, back loop only, and I will see you on the other side. Alright, so I've got mine to go around my head. And I actually didn't count my rows, but mine is 11 inches long. About 11.5 inches long. So I am, I'm not going to fasten off. I'm going to chain 1 here though. So I'm going to take my 2 ends. And I'm just going to slip stitch them together, so I only have 3 stitches to worry about. Where is my end? So I am just going to connect those 2. I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to do a slip stitch in each of these 3 stitches to get them together. If I can get into it for whatever reason, it's stuck on the metallic, so then you can fasten off. Now you don't really need anything to sew with unless you want to tack this to the head. But then you still only need just a tiny, tiny wee bit. So you can tie these two pieces. This is your straggler, and then whatever you just cut off, you can just tie them just for added security. Do a tight double knot, so that way it's so small that nobody really notices them. So you can weave these in. Don't just cut it off, because then you're going to leave a little nubby. Your knot might come undone, and it's going to get all frayed and look absolutely horrible. So one of them you can weave in, and if you want to tack this down, you can just leave the other one hanging for now. But we got to put the heart on. So I'm just going to go back and forth in a couple of directions for weaving. I don't want to pull tight because I don't want to distort. So I'm just going to snip that off as long as I can. And then you can save this for tacking to the bear. But a heart needs to go on. So I'm just going to tie this on. Which means that these two pieces are going to get yanked down. Actually, two different places. It's like yanking down. So figure out where you want it. So pretend that's going to be right at the back of the bear's head. So you're going to have it right in the middle, or off to the side, or off to the side. My other one I put over here on the right side because that's where it's holding the rose. But I think I will do... Yeah, see, I put it on this side because the bandana is on this side with the heart. So I think I will do the same thing. I'm going to put it over here because the rose is going to be here, so the bandana is going to hang over on this side. So it's going to be the opposite. So I will put my heart up here. So I pulled that one piece through, and then I'll pull this piece through in another spot. So don't make the first one tight, but make the second one, or even your third one, super duper tight. This is going to be on the head. I'm still going to leave nubbies. So, and you got to get your bear. Put it on. Figure out how it's going to sit on your bear, and then at that point you can tack it down just so it doesn't move around if you want, or you can just weave this in somewhere so it's not it can be removed. You know, sometimes kids like to take things on and off like Barbie clothes. You know, things need to be naked, and so I'm just going to put a couple of stitches in there, and then I'm pretty much just weaving, I suppose, if that's what you want to call it. But I used the doll to weave with, and now I'm just using the material because I just tacked it down. So there we have it. There's the bandana. So this part still moves up and down and wherever you want it. So let's move on to the bandana. Alright, so let's get this bandana out of the way. I'm going to do mine in red, like my last one. The only colors, actually, I'm doing exactly the same as my last one. The only color I'm doing differently is the rose. I'm going to do my rose in yellow and not red. So, the bandana is also nice and quick and easy. So you're going to make a slip knot. So we're going to start at the point, and we're going to work up. So you're going to chain 2. In this first stitch, you're going to put 2 double crochets. You're going to chain 1, and you're going to turn. So these are your 2 doubles. So you have 2 stitches. In each of these 2 stitches, you're going to put 2 double crochets in each. So I only want you to chain 1 here, because if I chain 2, then it would look like there was more stitches in there. So 2 double crochets in each of these 2 stitches. Oops. Chain 1 and turn. So we've started our point already. So now in this first stitch, I want you to put 2 double crochets. I want you to put 1 double crochet in the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the stitch after that, and then in this last stitch I want you to put 2 double crochets. Chain 1 and turn. So now in this first stitch, so that's this hole right there. You gotta pull this back. I want you to put 2 double crochets. And now I want you to do 4 double crochets. So 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. In this last stitch, I want you to put 2 double crochets in the same space. Chain 1 and turn. So it builds up pretty quick. First stitch gets 2 double crochets. And now I want you to put 1 double crochet in the next 6 stitches. And in your last stitch, I want you to put 2 double crochets. Chain 1, turn your work. 2 double crochets in the first stitch. So we've been increasing each row. And now I want you to put 1 in each of the next 8 stitches, and then 2 in the last stitch. That's 8, and then 2 in this last stitch. Chain 1 and turn. So now we're going to do 2 double crochet increase. So we're going to do 1 double crochet, next stitch gets 1 double crochet, so that's 2 double crochets, and then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 double crochets in the same space, and repeat. So now we're going to do a 1 double crochet increase. So pull back to find your first stitch, put 1 double crochet in there. Oops. Then your next stitch is going to get an increase of 2 double crochets. This is going to give it a weird shape, but that's what we want. Next stitch gets 1, next stitch gets the increase. last time, last stitch gets increased. So that makes it do a really like a fan thing. So now you're going to chain 1 and you're going to do a half double crochet around the entire project. So anywhere you can stick your needles down this side, there's no stitches. So anywhere you could stick your hook, I said needle, do a half double crochet. So there's no numbers, just wherever you're getting in there. You're gonna do a half double crochet all the way around. So don't worry if this looks like it's gonna be leaving gaps, because it's gonna be all bunchy on your bear. So I'm gonna weave this tail in that's down here on my point. So I want to keep this point. I'm just going to put 2 at the very end to keep it a little pointed. So even though I have stitches all along the top, I'm still going to put my half double crochets all along here, because I just want it to be uniformed. You know, you do something like this to clean up the edges and stuff, but even though I have stitches, and it's going to help too with the bigger stitch, with the roll down, because you're bunching this up. This is going to get bunched, you know, like a regular bandana. Anyway, so decide where you want to stop. I'm going to stop just on this corner. Make a slip stitch in your next actually, I'm gonna stop one more up. Make a slip stitch in your next stitch, and we're gonna make at least one side of the tie, and chain 7. It doesn't seem like much. Fasten off, leave a bit of a string. So we're just going to come around to the other side and we're going to reattach. So make a slip knot. Trying to find an easier way to do this. Try to find the same corner. That's our bandana. So before we put it on the bear, we need to make the heart. If you wanted to make the heart, whatever color you're going to do. So we're going to make our heart the same way we made the heart for the headband. We're going to make a magic ring. So make a magic ring. You're going to put 3 double crochets in there, or however you make a heart. You don't have to make the same one I'm making. You may make yours differently. So 3 double crochets, and then you're going to do 3 half double crochets. You're going to do a triple crochet, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, chain 3. You're going to find your 2 pieces of yarn. Oh, sorry, helps if I stay on camera. You're going to yarn over, pull through, and then slip stitch. And pull that tight. And now you're going to do 3 half double crochets. and then 3 double crochets. And pull this tight. You have to straighten out your point, You're going to chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into that great big hole. So now kind of just pull this to the back a little bit. You're going to tighten your center hole, pull down on the one at the back so everything's nice and tight, and then you're going to fasten off with a tail. So make sure you pull that nice and tight. We're going to do what we did with the last one. We're just going to tie it together. That way we make sure this is not going to pop back open, that's not going to pop forward, and then there's your little heart. And we're going to put down at the bottom. Then you can cut that off, leaving some nubbies, because you don't want that knot to work itself out. And there's my little heart. So it's just kind of off to the side a little bit. So I'm going to put him on this side. Oh no, the bandana goes on this side. So you just need to decide where, oh, you know what I gotta do? I gotta tuck this guy in. That's where I reattached, so I gotta tuck him in. So we just need to, so when you put this on, you're going to take the top and you're going to fold it down like that to put it on. So it's going to be slouchy, but we can tie it on first and then we can mess around with it. So tie it to your bear like you're just tying on a baby bib. So I made a bow just in the back. I'm going to cut these off just a little bit. They don't need to be that long. So I just made a bow in the back, and then after I made the adjustment of rolling this down or slouching it or doing whatever you want to do, but putting it on regardless. So there's different ways. You could have this poofed up. There's different ways to put it on. It can be directly in the front, it can be off to the side, but that's your bandana anyway. So actually maybe I'll just have mine kind of in the front. So next is going to be the rose that it's holding. And this is the last bit of this. We have to make the rose first, and then we use our stem color and crochet on the bottom before we roll everything together. So I'm going to do mine in yellow, which means I am going to turn my light up just a titch. So again, we're just doing a slip knot. You're going to chain 19. Skip this first one. So normally you have, I chain 19, so you'd have 18 working chains, but I'm going to use 17 of them, which means this first stitch I'm not going to use. So I'm going to go right into this second workable stitch, and I'm going to put a double crochet, and I'm going to put a double crochet in every stitch back up. So 17 double crochets all the way in every stitch back up to the top. So one more stitch, and that's my 17. So chain 2 and turn. So this chain 2 is going to act like a stitch for this very first stitch, so go into this next stitch and put a double crochet, and this is your repeat. You're going to chain 1, you're going to skip 1, and into the next stitch you're going to put 2 double crochets. Then you're going to put 3 double crochets, 1 in each stitch over the next 3 stitches. And you're going to do this 2 more times, 3 altogether. So your next stitch, you're going to put 1 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, 2 double crochets in the same space, and then 3 double crochets. So 1 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, 2 double crochets, so you're not going to be able to put your 3 double crochets in, but I just need you to have 3 big spaces, and you do. So just put a double crochet into this stitch, chain 2, there we go. So for these, oh sorry, I'm not even on camera. I don't even know how long I've been off camera. I can't see my viewfinder from where I'm sitting. I have to actually stretch up and look, so sorry if I'm still trying to get used to this new table. And my camera's gonna die again. So you should have 3 big spaces, 1, 2, and 3. So you're going to skip the first few stitches here, and you're going to go right into this big space, and you're going to put 7 double crochets into the big space. That's 7 double crochets into that space. You're going to skip 2, skip 2 stitches, and you're going to slip stitch into the third one. And then you're going to repeat that. You're going to skip these. So you're going to want to chain, make a chain. You can chain 1 or 2. It doesn't really matter. It's completely up to you what you do. And then you're going to put 7 double crochets into the next one. So it's going to pull this all together. But you can do extended stitches if you're comfortable. And by extended I mean to pull up before you make your complete your stitch. So that's what it should look like. So before my camera dies, skip 2, and into this one you're going to put a slip stitch. If I can get into it. So just slip stitch. This is worsted. I don't know why it even split like that. So put your slip stitch in. I'm going to put my chain. And then in the final space, you're going to do the same thing. That's my 7. So to slip stitch, to finish this off, you're just going to slip stitch anywhere here you can slip stitch. So I'm just going to go into that space and I'm going to slip stitch and fasten off. We're rolling this, so it doesn't really matter. So you just need enough to sew the two, after you roll it, to sew the two ends together, which isn't a whole bunch. Just a little. Just like that. Now if you wanted to scooch this yarn down here and then tie these two together, that takes care of your straggler. You can go right ahead and do that, because that's what I think I'm going to do. Just makes my whole life easier to tie things together. But I'm going to do it after I roll it. So we're going to be doing this, but first we got to build the stem onto the bottom. So that's what we're going to be doing. That makes our rows. So first we're going to have to do the stem. We're going to crochet the stem on before we roll it. So we're going to reattach with our green, or whatever you're using for a stem color, to the bottom right. Just make a slip knot. So the bottom right, you're going to attach your green. You are going to make, you're going to single crochet till you have 4 stitches across. So because that's just an attachment, I mean you can use it as a stitch, but that's just where we attached. Chain 1 and turn. So as you can see, I've not counted that as a stitch. So 4 single crochets, chain 1 and turn is all you're going to do until it's as long as you want the stem to be. I mean, if you want to use this, I can use this. That'll give me 5 stitches across. Doesn't really matter. It's just a stem. You can do it any way you want. And I'm just going to keep doing this until it's as long as I want it. And then I will meet you back here when you're ready. We will roll it, put it all together, sew it to the bear, and then we're going to be done. So I did 12 rows, and I'm going to fasten off with enough to sew this stem together. So leave your stragglers all attached. So now turn it around till the back is facing you, and we're going to roll. So don't worry about what this green is doing, just roll your rows. So the yellow. So once you get it into position, you just have to sew it into place. And it's not a super duper urgent, you know, you can make this, you have to make your adjustments, but it's not a super duper sewing job. Something that's right up my alley since I don't sew well. But I'm going to scooch my straggler over near my big guy here, but I don't want it to make it look like it's not even at the bottom. I don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to tie these together, and that's going to be my sew job basically. But you're not going to notice this. It's not going to be noticeable. So my first knot is not tight, but my second knot is going to be super tight. And then you can still adjust your rows after that. You can also just weave these in. I don't think I need to weave that much, but you can weave these in, because like I said, if you just cut it off, you got little nubbies, and then they're going to be very noticeable. So I'm just going to weave a little bit back and forth here and there. I don't want to go inside there. I just kind of want to stay out in this area. I'll just go back and forth a couple of times. We're just going to sew the stems shut. If you want to put a straw in here, I don't know if you followed my last rose or not, but my last rose, actual roses that sit in a vase, not a rose attached to a teddy bear, a rose that actually sits in a vase. I did it with straws. I put straws in the stem. So I'm going to first come across here because I want this to be shut at the bottom. So before I do anything, I'm just going to crisscross this like this. That kind of keeps the bottom round when you do it that way. And then I'm going to whip stitch. So I need to readjust my rows, moved around. So I went in and grabbed some of my rows just so it stopped moving up and down once I was to the top. I wanted to put a couple of pieces in there so you're almost attaching the stem to the rose. You're just trying to be neat about it. So you're gonna have to hide because the colors are very different. So you're just gonna have to kind of pull tight enough to hide the different colors. But you didn't want your rose to be moving around out of shape or anything. So I just wanted to tack it down in a couple of places. And then I'm going to come back around to my straggler, preferably through my rows, back to my straggler. Of course I've got so much, and I'm going to tie my knots. So I'm going to pull really, really, really tight. So it really hit all my other green except for that one. So I'll just have to make sure his hand is on that side. It's not perfect by any means. So I'm just going to weave down into the green a little bit. I probably put too much stuffing in there because I can see the white through there. So I'm not a fan of what I did there. But I'll just pull these pieces down as opposed to cutting them off. Down into the stuffing. They're not really going to go anywhere. And then I can snippy that away. So the only thing left to do now is to sew it to the bear. So I used white to sew it because his hands are white and I'm going to come all the way through the hand. So I put that down. One end of this, make a knot. Sorry, I'm really close to the camera right now. The other end of it, you're going to weave. So I need to find a gonna have to move my bandana. So figure out where you want this to go. Figure out where you want him to hold it. Figure all that out, and then you can just literally go into the hand, through the rose, through the stem, and out the other side. So don't pull this knot that we made, don't pull that into the hand. I want to be able to push it into the hand, and then just go back and forth like that. You have to really squeeze it. But that's all I did. I just went back and forth. Probably use a darning needle. So don't pull tight, because you're going to pop your hand out of form if you pull too tight. But if you go back a number of times back and forth, you shouldn't really have to pull that tight. So back and forth a couple of times is really all you need to do. And then I'm going to tie a knot right here. Get that guy out of the way. And then I'm going to push these two pieces down into the hand. So that's knot number one. So push that down into the stuffing. Sorry, I'm bashing into the camera and everything. You were really close to the camera. And then knot number, well, that was technically knot number one, knot number two. So just get that down. If you pop your hand out of, oh, let's jam that down better. So just pop your hand back into shape, because you would have squished it. And there. And now he's holding the yellow rose. There we go. It's hard to show you. Get my camera back that far. Anyway. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you in the next video.